regular council meeting. Council, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been circulated? Councillor Gartner, thank you. Councillor Maracas, second. Comments or questions on the agenda? Wait a minute, agenda as amended, excuse me. There's an addition. Councillor Gartner, you okay with moving that? Just moving it at this point. We need a mover and seconder before question. I'm sorry?
When do we discuss perhaps deferring some of the items tonight?
Yeah,
so
when we get into
okay.
it. Okay, please.
No, I haven't looked at this, so
Okay,
I can't.
thank you. Thank you. Second? Councillor Maracas, thank you. All in favor of the agenda as amended? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest, please. Seeing none, we will move on to council. I think if we put our minds to it, we can move through by 9 o'clock. At that point, if we're still here, I would suggest we defer at that point, if we're good with that. Thank you. In that case, we'll move into presentations. Our first presentation is Laurie Mueller, Executive Director of Sport Aurora, with the official launch of the shoelace plan. Laurie. It says right here, Laurie Mueller. Okay. We have Ron Weiss and we have Ken Turf from Sport Aurora, Activate Aurora. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Laurie put the application in, so I guess that's how that happens. My name is Ron Weiss. I live at 37 Larmont Street. Mayor, members of council, staff, and guests, I'm here tonight representing Activate Aurora as the chair of the steering committee. So can we just... Here we go. Activate Aurora, as you know, started about 18 months ago, and our role is to create confident people in this community. Our secondary role is to help make Aurora Canada's most active community. And so one of the things that we've done over the last little while is to try to prepare a campaign that will work to identify people's goals, because psychologists will tell you that goals are the first step in any kind of behavior change. And so with our group here, we've identified a campaign that is called Take the Pledge, and my colleague Ken here, I'll introduce in a minute, is here to do that. Our objective here is to have as many people in Aurora participate in this Take the Pledge, because as you know, when you take a pledge, you're establishing a goal, and hopefully you'll establish some actions after that will follow up. And the goal that we have, of course, is for people to be more active. This is also part of our Ontario Trillium Foundation impact. We have to demonstrate impact in for the Ontario Trillium Foundation. So as a result, we do this by having people take a pledge to be more active in the next 6 months. We're also working about various challenges and things that Ken will identify. So Ken Turf is responsible for our communications plan, so I'm going to introduce Ken and ask him to take over.
Thank you so much, Ron, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to all members of council. I just want to take this opportunity to say how pleased we are to launch tonight's Activate Aurora video premiere that each member of council so generously lent their time to participating in, and I know that it was a little difficult at times in trying to coordinate everybody's time, but thank you so much. It was greatly appreciated. We know that, for example, that sitting is the new smoking, and that we have and live sedentary lives, whether it's at the office or whether it's in our leisure because we're binge watching Game of Thrones or some other great some other great show. But this does not necessarily do the body any good. And as we have an aging population and we have a young population, that are playing video games and so forth, a sedentary lifestyle leads to obesity, joint illness, homelessness, things like type 2 diabetes and the like. So we are hoping that through our Take the Pledge campaign that we soft launched at public events, including at Town Park concerts in the park, but also through iWalk events at the various Activate Aurora schools, that we are going to be making an impact. And tonight what we're intending to do is we're going to officially hard launch this initiative, and we're going to be taking out some advertising that I'm sure that you have seen, ads that will be running in this week's Auroran newspaper, which are video captures from the video that you each participated in. And I think that, and I would like to thank you that, for having taken leadership in participating in this video. It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds. While I conceived of the video and shot the video, it was edited elsewhere and came together quite nicely. So we've been kind of sitting on it, not sharing it, but we will be putting it on social media in the next day or two. We encourage you to each share it with Aurorans and the wider community. The next step for us is getting other business or getting business to challenge one another. And I think that the mayor will probably be making a little bit of an announcement with regard to how we're going to move the challenge forward. So let me just jump ahead here. Whoop, going the wrong way. So without further ado, I'd like to premiere tonight's video. So you'll see Don.
Hi, I'm Mayor Jeffrey Daw, and I have taken the pledge to be more physically active. How about you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Harold Kim, and I've taken the pledge to be more physically active. Now, how about you?
Hi, I'm Deputy Mayor John Abel, and I've taken the pledge to be more active. Will you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Wendy Gertner. I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. How about you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Paul Peary, and I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. How about you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Sandra Humphreys, and I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. How about you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Tom Morakis, and I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. Will you?
Hey, I'm Councillor Jeff Tom, and I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. How about you?
Hi, I'm Councillor Michael Thompson, and I've taken the pledge to become more physically active. How about you, Aurora? Will you take up the pledge?
So I do want to point out that the mayor did make the last putt there. So we wanted to make sure that that in fact happened. So let's see if there's another. Oop. So in helping to make Aurora Canada's most active community, we welcome challenges to, across all schools, sporting organizations, businesses, and service organizations. And anyone can join to take the pledge. So while we've had, shoelaces as a reminder, we've, had pencils at schools, we've had rolls that students have been able to sign and taking the pledge so that they just have to sign Johnny and so forth. So it's a way for us to, get into the schools and for school children who would otherwise need parental consent just to put down Johnny and so forth. So we are getting a fair bit of engagement. And again, we will be sharing this on social media and encourage you to do so as well too. So, I think that, going the wrong way again. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, or either Ron, Lori, or myself would be quite happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Ken. First, Councillor, may I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Peary, Councillor Humphreys. And I'll just start off the comments by saying that I'm more than delighted to challenge the town of Newmarket and Mayor Van Bynen specifically to take the pledge and get more active. I'm not sure he knows this is coming. Council, any other comments, please, on this? That's great. Thank you very much for coming out. Oh, Councillor Gartner, I apologize.
I was just going to say it was a lot of work on your part, and I didn't have actually a lot of fun doing it, but everybody else looked like they did, so good on you.
If I may just add, actually, my wife took great delight with Councillor Jeff Tom, who kept on skating in and like with ice, coming up again, you know. So she said, "Can we do that again? I didn't like that angle," and so forth. So so thank you. So we had a lot of fun doing it. So thank you to each member of council.
Thank you very much, Ken, for coming out. Ron and Lori, thank you very much. All in favor of receipt, please. Opposed? That is carried. Our next presentation is Paul McIntosh and Chris Kubinga with respect to the new Central York Fire Services building. Looks like he's being led off by Mr. Downey.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's my pleasure to present the concept design for the new Central York Services headquarters in Station 4-5. This journey started on March 28th with the engagement of Thomas Brown Architects, and this evening you'll see a presentation by Thomas Brown Architects on the new facility. As part of the process, we have developed a task force with staff from the town of both Aurora and Newmarket, as well, of course, the fire chief and the architects, to take us through this design process. It culminated in a presentation made to JCC on November 7th of this year, where JCC recommended approval of this design and that we move forward with phase 2 of the RFP process, which is detailed design and preparation of tender documents. This has been a very collaborative process. We have reported on several occasions to JCC. We are looking for approval this evening from Aurora Council. We are then scheduled to go before Newmarket Council before the end of the month, and proceeding from that point on through about a 5 or 6 month process through detailed design and preparation of tender documents before we come to you again asking to move forward with the tendering of the project. So with that, Chief, do you have a few words?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you're all aware, and the JCC are very acutely aware, the master fire plan outlined the need for a 5th fire station, and we are in the process of hiring the additional staff over a 5-year period to help us supplement our existing fire services personnel. We've been working hard with the task force and with the architects to make sure that this building meets the needs now, but will meet the needs in the future for both communities of Aurora and Newmarket. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Paul McIntosh and Chris Kubinga from Thomas Brown Architects.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you very much for giving us this time to present the design for the new Central York Fire Services headquarters. We have been working very closely with the town, Al, and the chief and his staff, and we believe we have between us come up with a design which will be a proud addition to the community. We have a presentation, just in time, it seems to me, presentation, but Chris Kubinga will run the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions once that's done.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present. This one right here? Okay. Can everyone hear me? I tend to speak a little low. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through probably a presentation that you may have on your desks or may have seen before. It basically goes through the site plan, floor plans, and some renderings of the proposed station. As Paul and the chief have said, we've been involved in a pretty lengthy back and forth in terms of really tailoring the building to the needs of the fire service, not only for current needs, but also to try and plan for future. I'm going to run through the slides quickly, and then what I'll do is I'll flip over to a live model that'll give, I think sometimes people tend to find it a bit easier to understand when you sort of see the thing in front in 3 dimensions. So what we're looking at here, this is the site. The building is located in this area here. This is Isaacson Court over here, and this is Earl Stewart Drive. I'm sorry. I'm not used to that. Okay, so what we have is we have the building located here, and we have primarily response aisles out onto Earl Stewart, and one access aisle off to the side for vehicular traffic coming in. The main entrance to the building actually though is off Isaacson, and we have 2 vehicular entrances here and parking distributed around the site. In the back, what you're looking at here is actually a training facility that is going to be ultimately built out to encompass various training evolutions for firefighting, which is often seen as a critical component of any fire service. Just for orientation, this is Isaacson. There is the cul-de-sac. To the north, if we're going to use north as up in this presentation, to the north is actually the hydro corridor, which provides a large buffer between that and the residential community further up. To the right-hand side, or the east side, is actually the car dealership. To the south is the superstore. And to the west, there is actually some single-story industrial development. This is the floor plan. This is the current iteration. What the design of the building really is seeking to do is to incorporate a full-time, full complement fire station, apparatus space to house all the vehicles, and then a training component. This is the ground floor plan. We're seeing the full fire station on this side, the apparatus bay where the vehicles are kept in the middle, and supporting spaces and training spaces located over to the side. The building does try to house under one roof firefighting capabilities, administrative staff, equipment storage, and training facilities. When we go to the second floor, you see that the administration spaces for the fire service are primarily located on this side of the building, and then there's also a training component located over here. It is all accessed from the second floor. It provides a lot of direct communication between all parties, and I think it fulfills a mandate to sort of bring the training component and the administrative component closer together. We also have a large training classroom on the second floor with the capability for that room to be used as a backup EOC. These are renderings of the project. What we can see here is that it's a contemporary building, very durable materials, and we really have tried to treat it as a signature building, representing the fire service to the surrounding community. This is the view from Earl Stewart Drive. This is a view also from Earl Stewart Drive, and on the site plan, the reference I made to the secondary vehicular access, that's right along here. This is a view from Isaacson Court from the corner of the training looking back at the building. This is actually the rear of the building. Now, we will probably get into this in a bit more detail in the 3-dimensional model, but because of the balance between training administrative staff and access to the second floor, there's a main public entrance at the front, which we are seeing here. And there is another entrance at the back, which can be used for training programs and people coming into the facility that are not necessarily there on a full-time basis. They can access the training without sort of having an awkward overlap between the administration and the training facility. This is a view directly on from Earl Stewart Drive. This is the responding aisle. You can see the red doors. That is the 4 double-depth apparatus bays and the spaces above on the second floor. The design has really sort of tried to reinforce the contemporary nature of the building by using the prominent roof planes, but creating a lot of transparency and a lot of natural light. And we will be incorporating sustainable technologies where feasible or where appropriate, I think is probably the better term. I just want to touch into, because there was some discussion had previously, if we go back to the site plan in terms of its proximity to the surrounding neighborhood, I've already mentioned that the entire site is built out almost like a campus. We do have very good separation between the residential communities. I think there was, anybody in their community would like to know what's happening. In terms of any development, we do have a very large buffer that we're taking advantage of, and that's why the training facilities are located in the back. We will also be using strategies such as berming and landscape screening to sort of keep that area not necessarily completely exposed to the public. Now, the other thing too to note is that the training facility, certainly the exterior spaces, are not going to be used on a full-time basis. It'll be sporadic, and it'll be on a generally
Mr. Kaminga,
Yes.
I'm either going to have to ask you to wrap up in a minute, or I'm going to need an extension from council.
Okay.
Councilors Perry and Humphrey, 5 minute. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Carry on, sir.
Okay. Apologies. This is, I'm going to go into the three-dimensional model. So what we have here, if you can take it from the site plan, we have the building layout and on the site. These views are intended to sort of give an understanding of what the building will be like in 3 dimensions. Currently, right now, it's set at a dusk, because that also gives the idea that the building will have animation at night from the street. Okay, this is what we anticipate the design of the building, the street presence of the building to be. It's it is contemporary. I think it's well suited to the role of the fire services in the community. This is just giving everybody an idea. These are all the views as we go around the building. Okay, that is the main public entrance. I'm quickly going to just change the daylight so that we come into more of what it would look like during the day. And again, what we can see here is the building as it sits on the site during the day. I'm sorry. Okay, so in terms of, if anybody certainly has any questions, I believe there'll be a question period. But the other thing I will say is that we're also able to move around the building. If anyone has any particular, would like to see anything in particular, we can certainly accommodate that, but go through the doors, okay. In fact, okay, so what you can see is actually, I'm going to do this very quickly. Okay, as this project is in the design phase, as you can see, what we've actually done is we've started to lay out the spaces on the second floor. This is just a corridor. This is the point that the project is at in its development. The classrooms that I had mentioned before are accessed through here. Okay. And certainly there's the EOC backup spaces as well. Sorry. Okay, and just really as a quick walkthrough. Okay, so what we're looking at here are the training officers, offices and supporting spaces, and coming back down into a little bit of a bumpy ride. And then back out the back, and this is the view. This is the secondary entrance. So the design of the building is really creating 2 public faces. Certainly one mainly for the main public administration, the other one for the training facility. It tends to be a nice solution and a nice resolution to a complex problem. Okay.
Thank you. That's very impressive.
Okay. We haven't designed that in yet, so no, we're that's a bit early on in the process. The bays, in keeping with contemporary fire station design, we are going to be keeping the bays very open. Okay, as you can see, this would be the scale of the bay with the vehicles and the apparatus all sitting within. The design does actually create the second floor, so the drop in the ceiling, what you're seeing there, is actually the second floor as it spans across. Again, to keep all the departments sort of in close communication. Outdoor spaces and patios, fitness rooms, all the typical program that the fire department needs in order to maintain service levels to the community. So if anybody has any questions, I can certainly.
Thank you very much. First of all, council motion to receive the presentation, please. Councillor Berry, Councillor Humphreys, comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. That was, I think, one of our most exciting presentations. I have a comment. There's a lot of glass.
Yes.
And I know from our third floor here that has a lot of glass.
Yes.
And the front windows here, that in the summer it's really hot and in the winter it's cold. So not very energy efficient. Can you just comment on that? Because there is a lot of glass here.
We, as the design will develop, the extent of the glass will actually be probably tweaked a fair bit. I mean, we're at a point here where we've got the building, we've got all the spaces laid out, and we've got the arrangement. The next step is really to sort of refine and tailor. But we will also be using a higher performance glazing system, and we'll pay particular attention to heat loads in the way we design the mechanical systems. So one of the things that we do as part of the design scenario is we want to keep the bays quite open so that the vehicles and the apparatus are visible to the public. We will look at where it makes sense from an energy efficiency standpoint. We'll look at reducing the glass.
Thank you, because it really is a problem in the town hall, although this is an older building. But
yeah, and
but glass is glass.
Yes, exactly. But we have done similar projects like this, and it does take particular attention to the mechanical systems and the way that they're functioning and anticipating the loads.
Following on the environmental comment, I see you have a small green roof. Can we have a bigger green roof?
Certainly. Yes, no, certainly. Right now, at this point, we're still discussing whether or not what the roof should be used for. We do tend to put green roofs in most of the areas where it makes sense. There's also the possibility of maybe planning for photovoltaic panels on the roof, if it's feasible. I want to make the point that in almost all of these projects, the sustainable initiatives have to make sense and have to be appropriate. But we're at that point. We've already started discussions about that.
Thank you. I noticed you said in your comments where appropriate. But I mean, we really need to start taking environmental protection seriously, and we're not going to make that many new buildings in Aurora.
Absolutely.
So this is an opportunity. I didn't see an elevator, but I assume there's going to be one for accessibility?
Yes, the building will be accessible, fully accessible.
And with respect to the parking, what I've often found in public buildings like this, the parking is really far away from the front entrance. I know the police headquarters has a little bit of parking right in front, but most of it's quite far away. So for the public and for accessibility issues, how is this parking? I couldn't tell from where there's just a little bit of parking.
Yeah, so what we've done, this facility is not a community center in the sense that we don't, I mean, we will pay particular consideration to what the anticipated public interaction is. But you can see what we've done is we've started to distribute the parking all the way around the building. Some spots are designated for staff coming on and off shift, and they're located in a particular area that makes sense for them. With the two vehicle entrances coming in off Isaacson, we actually have sort of planned for a very close proximity of any public parking to the main public entrance, and then administrative parking coming along from that. You can sort of see it in this model here. So this parking area here and this parking area here currently are thought of as a combination of administration and public parking. We have the opportunity to expand the parking because we have the classroom component as well. So as we refine the design, we have these areas up here that are available to park. So it's a balance between the area to be used for training and what the parking needs are. But we've done several of these facilities, and we understand that the parking has to be designed to the use of the building. So.
Thank you for considering the screening from the residents.
Yes.
Residential, and also I'm sure you've considered light pollution.
Yeah, we'll adhere to dark sky policies, okay, and
Thank
we'll
you.
also adhere to flap.
And what about birds with the glass?
So for flap, for the
okay, thank you.
that's the initiative. So we will have a dot pattern on all glazing up to 11 meters above grade. And where possible, we will also look at whether or not the configuration of the building can actually reduce reflections and help in that. But as a bare minimum, we'll meet flap requirements with patterning on the windows.
Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you for the presentation. And my one question was about green energy possibilities on the top. That was covered. I think you had mentioned in JCC that you would retrofit some of the conduit and stuff before you, so that if anything was decided,
Yes.
you would be prepared and have that ready.
Yes.
So it would mitigate or minimize any major structural changes if we decide on something.
Sorry. Absolutely. The roofs will all be designed, I mean, the whole building is designed to post-disaster, and there will be an understanding that there will be provision if, in fact, like a photovoltaic system should go on the roof. It'll obviously be able to be supported by the roof, and also we will provide, as you had already mentioned, conduits down to the main electrical room and space for the components required to incorporate that system.
Thank you. And my comment, we see quite a few renderings, but that's an outstanding presentation of what this design would look like. So,
well, thank you very much.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you for coming. Certainly, we certainly enjoyed the presentation at JCC where you got to show off your first-person skills as cruising through the facility. Really, my question is about the signage on the property, notifying the residents in the area about what's coming, and will it contain a picture of the proposed model as well, and what the timelines around that are?
Yeah, I think we've actually already started. We're doing work in the area, and we have a project sign format that has a large-scale rendering that would be placed prominently on the site. I mean, we can determine certainly with the client where exactly is the best place to put it, but we will be looking to put probably a 4x8 sign up with a photorealistic rendering of the project and an announcement.
Thanks.
Seeing no other speakers, thank you very much for coming out. We do appreciate it and appreciate the 3D model. Council, all in favor of receiving the presentation? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have no delegations tonight, Council. We have the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to move either to the regular agenda or to have a discussion about? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will have to step away at approval of consent agenda under GC last week. Item R1, regarding the Central York Fire Department budget.
So you're declaring conflict?
Yeah,
Declaring interest?
declaring
Okay.
interest, yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
We'll vote on that separately. Councillor Peary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number C1R8.
Okay. I'm actually going to get the clerk to speak to that, if I'm, and the report. So that would couple with R4 from tonight. So, Mr. Clerk. I'll say it now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Staff presented an additional report tonight to council with information. Council may have noticed it's rather lengthy. So what staff would propose is that both R8, C1 R8 as Councilor Periods has pulled, and R4 from tonight's agenda be referred to GC next week.
Second, Councillor Gardner. That's to move both of those forward to next week for discussion. All in favor then? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. So then we'll vote on all of the consent agenda items with the exception of C1R8. So we'll vote on all of them. I'm sorry. Thank you. You're correct, Councillor Tom. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Councillor Gardner.
R4.
Okay, do you want to talk about it or do you want to move it to the regular agenda?
Oh, you could move it to the regular agenda because
Okay,
I have
thank you.
quite a few questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then If there's nothing else under the consent agenda, it was moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gartner, that all items in this case except for C1R1 and C1R4, we'll vote on those. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Humphries, do you wish to step away from the table for C1R1? Can I have someone move C1R1, please? Councillor Maracas, thank you. A second. Councillor Perry, all in favor? Opposed? Right. So we're using our buttons. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So all in favor, please vote yes. All those opposed, vote no. Councillor Humphries is not voting. That is carried 8 to 0. Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Okay, we'll move then to we'll move to the regular items, and why don't we start with then C1R4. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wasn't fast enough on the draw last week to, as I.
So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to need a motion, if I may, please.
I make the motion.
Staff recommendation. Councillor Maracas, second. Councillor Gartner, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to page 4. And I'll just read it. Anticipated new revenues were quickly consumed by identified budget pressure areas. Staff were able to hold the line, found savings in other line items. So in other words, all the money that we had available for expenditures were used up, and staff was not allowed to do the rate of inflation for their items. Am I getting that correctly through to Mr. Elliott?
Mr. Elliott, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's essentially the message there is that when we take the new revenues, we apply or fund all of the other pressures that were upon us. There was nothing left at the end of the day for our departments to have new spending money on their expenditure line items, other than those that were identified as the pressures.
Thank you. And I know we want to keep the budget down for our taxpayers, and also it is an election year. But to me, it's short-sighted, because that means that next year we're going to be adding extra budget pressure for whatever council sits at that time. So I object to that. I think it's short-sighted, and I don't think it's proper financial planning. With respect to the funding for the waste management contract, it's also on page 4. And I didn't catch this when it came out of the Finance Advisory Committee, because it was on the minutes. But the recommendation is to take the increased cost for the new waste management contract out of the rate stabilization fund. And to me, a rate stabilization fund, and I think when it was first formed, I think I remember Mr. Elliott saying this, that a rate stabilization fund is for unexpected and unanticipated costs. We had the waste management contract at this table a couple of years ago, and it's no surprise that our community is larger, and the contract, therefore, is going to be more expensive. I don't think that it's appropriate that we use a stabilization fund for a waste management contract. And I wasn't at the discussion at the Finance Advisory Committee. Again, I know we're trying to hold the increase for the taxpayer at a certain level, but this is a completely inappropriate use of this fund, in my opinion. On the other hand, the wage increases, the bill that's coming out of the Ontario government, well, we didn't expect that. And that is a perfect place, as the Finance Advisory Committee mentioned, that is a perfect place to take the funding for that. I'd like to know on page 6, and I think this is a Mr. Downey, I'm not sure, my mic doesn't seem to be very loud. I'm not sure on page 6, the 4th bullet from the top, advancement of recommendations from the Parks and Rec Master Plan and the Sports Plan. Is the money being spent for the Rec Master Plan or for the Sports Plan? And if it's being spent for the Rec Master Plan, could you say what items we're going to be using from the Rec Master Plan?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, 2 projects this year have been identified and put in the capital budget. One is the ball diamonds that we had presented at the Hallmark Building, and the other is the multi-purpose recreation facility. We have had identified funding to advance that project, and both of those were identified as recommendations coming out of the master plan.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you very much. With respect to the ballparks, the ball diamonds, did we approve 2 ball diamonds? Can somebody remind me? Mr. Elliott, did we approve any ball diamonds?
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my recollection is no, you did not. What you asked us to do was to come back with some alternative plans for those lands, and perhaps show 1 ball diamond and perhaps another sports field. Look at perhaps some cost-cutting measures with regards to the design of the ball diamonds, and break down some of those costs so that council could make some decisions with regards to whether we want to light them and how extensive a backstop we wanted, or irrigation systems or whatever. So we have some additional work to do once council approves the capital budget. Before we get approval of the ball diamonds, so they have not been approved.
Thank you. And with respect to the new community facility where they might be, I think we're only having there's $1 million or so for a design. Am I correct on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the capital budget has identified $2.4 million in 2018, and that was to start or commence the facility fit and design phase of the multipurpose facility.
Thank you. I underestimated that a bit. And are we going to go out to the public to get their feedback on this before or after the design?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we actually commenced that process last evening in this chamber. We had a meeting with Sport Aurora. It was a public meeting. As you know, Sport Aurora has gone out to their members to solicit their comments with regards to what they would like to see as facility fit. I attended their annual general meeting last night in a public forum where they could make some presentation with regards to that. We are then going forward to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to have further discussions with regards to proposed facility fit. It is our intent at that point excuse me, to hold full public meetings with regards to what they would like to see as facility fit before we move forward with a council report that gets us closer to a commitment of that facility fit, and then moving forward with the engagement of an architect to assist us in designing a building in accordance with those facilities requested by council.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. That was a fulsome answer.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. As chair of the Financial Advisory Committee, I feel the need to respond to some of the comments. This council has unanimously adopted a budget principles document that clearly gave staff direction to go out and deliver a budget that is limited to the cost of inflation plus 1% for a capital strategy. And that's what's been done. It was done last year and it was done this year, and those budget principles will hold true regardless of whether it's an election year or not. It is the direction put forward by this council and agreed upon by everybody in this council, and so staff's gone out and done it. And at no time has Mr. Elliott or our CEO, Doug Nadarozny, said to the FAC committee that meeting these targets year over year is going to create a service level deficit. they feel quite confident that they can deliver on those budget principles. That's also why we're looking at multi-year budgeting, to ensure that we're managing those ongoing pressures in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gartner for a second time.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and I appreciate your response. And it's a truth. So I'm sorry if I offended the committee. I'm just trying to point out that in doing that, we are going to be putting extra stress on the budget for next year, because for staff not to be able to do any of their services in keeping with using the rate of inflation, I don't understand how it's even possible. And I think it's going to leave us in a vulnerable position. And maybe I'm wrong, and you know more about finance than I do, but I think that's I think it's a mistake. And the other thing about using the tax rate stabilization fund, I don't. Again, I know we have certain principles in place, and we've had them now for a couple of years, but that is not what that stabilization fund is for. That should be part of our budget on a tax levy, a garbage contract, and we have supplementary taxes that come in from the new residents to help with the increased cost for their additional service. So, and maybe I don't understand it properly. Again, I really admit I'm not as good as you or some other people at this table. I just don't. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't find it appropriate.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Not to just keep going back and forth, but I certainly invite all members of council to attend any FAC meeting and bring some of these questions forward. I think the tax rate stabilization is a great question. I think we've had lots of conversation at the committee level and so forth around it. Perhaps what would be helpful is if either Mr. Nadarozny or Mr. Elliott could speak to the waste contract. I don't think the council understands. We're not just talking about an annual inflationary increase year over year. It was a substantive increase, and I don't know if either person can quantify it or not. Mayor Daw?
I will go to the CAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to suggest that I add a clarifying comment. The increase, just want to make it clear that the part that is being spread over 2 years is the increase only in the waste services contract, and we had a 10-year contract. It expired, and this increase was far larger than anybody anticipated in terms of the magnitude of the increase, and is much bigger than just the new service area. It's actually reflective of some think that perhaps the previous contract operated almost at a break even, and now the market forces have come to bear, and so that cost was much larger than anticipated, and it's for 10 years, and so it's only to phase it in over 2 years instead of taking all the hit in 1 year. We phase it over 2 years, and then it's fully in the budget. Thank you, and if I may continue, and just it's fine to debate the merits of the tax rate stabilization and how best to use it, but in theory, the practice is to smooth out changes year over year. Right, and so that's what it's looked upon, and so in this case, it seemed appropriate to smooth it out over 2 years. So you don't have 1 year of a 5% increase and the next year of a 1% increase. You're trying to smooth it out, and that was the purpose of using it. But again, I certainly welcome everybody's comments and participation in future FAC meetings, and I'm sure Mr. Elliott would love to sit down and talk to anybody about the tax rate stabilization fund.
Councillor Pirie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for clarification, through you to Mr. Elliott, did we not employ the same strategy when looking at new fire crew members?
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We've been working with trying to phase in the new fire crews, and in some years we've been drawing from stabilization, and some years we're actually contributing to the stabilization. But yes, we have done that, and actually not the current set of crews, or less so for the current set of crews, but about 5 or 6 years ago when we hired the last new crew, we did the tax rate stabilization reserve.
Councillor Pirie?
Thank you. And I've been on council for 7 years now. It's hard to remember everything all the way through, but I think this is a fairly standard practice that we've employed over the course of my time on council.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. I see no more comments on this item. All in favor, please. Oh, I'm sorry, we're using the voting machines. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's been 2 weeks, I forgot. All in favor, please vote, and if you'd raise your hands just for the cameras, please. Those opposed? Councillor Kim, Gartner, and Maracas. Councillor Maracas has stepped away from the table for a minute. Okay, it's carried. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Humphreys because she would like to correct something.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if I can have council's indulgence in a reconsideration of the approval of the general committee minutes. I did want to pull 2 items, and I didn't because I was very concerned about my pecuniary interests and neglected to pull those afterwards. I'd like to pull forward 2 of the under general committee item R2.
It would just be the entire item, C1
Oh,
or 2.
okay, yes.
So, Councillor, because we've already passed it, and this is Councillor Humphreys is asking for reconsideration to open C1 R2. So she's moving for a reconsideration. Yes.
I need a second.
Needs a second for reconsideration. Thank you, Councillor Perry. Requires a 2/3 vote to reopen that item. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll turn that over to
2 items. No, same. Sorry. Just
Could you explain that? Just a sec there. Councillor, excuse me, I was just conferring with the clerk.
Good.
Councillor Humphreys, if you wish to put that on the floor.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring forward item 3 and 4, but we'll look at, if that's okay, if I could. They were voted on last week, and I'd like to do an official vote on these 2 properties, if possible. Is that appropriate?
Okay, Mr. Clerk, what would be the appropriate way to handle this?
Yes, please.
Because there's 3 items in there.
It's 3 zoning applications.
3 zoning applications.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Because general committee has recommended that just the 1 be accepted, there need to be amended in.
Okay.
So if you wanted to move an amendment, if it was duly seconded,
Sure, perfect.
then we could do that and it would require 2 of those, and then the main motion as amended. Vote. Thank you.
So then the amendment would be to that items B and C be accepted?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk? Is there a second for that? Councillor Perry, thank you. And I'll go back to you to speak
Perfect.
to it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I know last week I was chair and.
Okay, I'm sorry, there's some,
sorry.
so what's happened, pardon me, Councillor Humphreys, what we've done is Councillor Humphreys requested reconsideration on item R2. That is on the table right now, and she's moving, last week we approved item A to be accepted, items B and C to not be accepted. She's moving that items B and C through an amendment be accepted. Councillor Humphreys, back to you. Yes. What did I say? I said B and C.
Yes.
Yes. Correct. Yes. But the amendment is specifically B and C. A was already accepted.
So we should call them. I'd like to call them separate. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Let's call them separate.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, what?
Okay, amendment 4.
B, and then we'll do C separately.
So can she move 2 amendments? Okay, so we'll do amendment, the first amendment would be item B. Councillor Perry, you okay with that? And that would be with respect to 100 Tyler and 46 George Street.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep. I have not much comment other than, oh, my apologies. Thank you. Hey, Mr. Mayor, one of the
You're on.
Sorry, thank you, my apologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After lots of discussion last week, I heard from staff that, these applications were in the queue. There was significant work done. And this is not to vote on the merits of the property, but other than just to bring them forward like they were in the queue. And I think we got pretty, heavily into the discussion of the merits of the property. Do we feel they're right or wrong? And it was difficult for us to separate that because we had some of that information in front of us, so hard to separate. And also, that kind of discussion is usually done at the planning meetings where people can come out and voice their concerns and, we address. So for me, I'd like to see these both come back and I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, that's to.
But that's for B, item B that you just mentioned.
So we're just dealing with item B right now. I've got Councillors Abel and then Councillor Gartner. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had a fair amount of questions on this, but just for the benefit of a quick review, we have a comprehensive zoning bylaw that has been in place since June, and the provision that a council not take any zoning application amendments, new ones, for a period of 2 years. We've also recognized that there were a number of applications that were being worked on and were active at the time. And so we have seen them come forward since the time we enacted this. And I don't know through you, Mr. Mayor, but I'm thinking we're probably 5 or 6 so far.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The intent of council meetings are to bring new information to the table, not to rehash everything. So can I ask that we deal with new information? If there is no new information, we call the vote.
Okay. Councillor Abel, if you could move along in your argument, please.
Mayor, last week I did not ask that question, so for me it's new information. I didn't ask how many we had queued up, so it's a new question. I was just framing my question. So through you, Mr. Mayor, my question before I was interrupted was, to date, since the new comprehensive zoning bylaw, how many have we, a council, had before us, if that's available?
Mr. Ramuno, I'm sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not including these 3 before council, council has dealt with 5 requests for zoning applications, and I think council agreed to accept the previous 5, and now we've got 3 before council this evening.
And then I believe there are some that are going to follow up. So we owe it to our development and people that own property to kind of grandfather in a few of these items. And so I'm all in favor of doing that. I was satisfied that the first one was such an item, so we've seen it many times before, and I voted and opposed the other 2. This was one of them on George Street. So I'll still, unless there's any new information, I don't see any, I'll still be voting no on this item.
Okay. Any other? Councillor Gartner, Councillor Thompson.
I'll have to be careful. Councillor Perry is watching me. I agree with what Councillor Abel said. And also, B and C are in stable neighborhoods. I would like to have us, I think it's important we look at our zoning bylaw. We had a chamber filled with people here. I think we need to look at our zoning bylaws for stable neighborhoods, and I would like to do that before we consider any applications there.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Bruno, while the comprehensive zoning bylaw has a 2-year clause to it, is there anything preventing these applicants from bringing back their applications if they aren't accepted in the near future, say after Bill 139 is passed or the next term of council, or, you know, is there anything preventing them from even bringing it back 2 months from now?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. Council could reconsider any of these applications at a later date if you so choose.
Councilor
Thank you.
Johnson?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other speakers to this item? So the amendment is that item B from R2 of last week be accepted. Using your voting tablets, please. All in favor? Those contrary? Just B separately at this point. Correct. Okay. Are we all in? That is defeated. Councillor Humphreys?
So I'd like to move item C for 103, 107, 111 Metcalfe Street be accepted. For me, this is, we actually, I know we shouldn't be talking about the merits of the application, so I won't. I'm in
Councillor
favor.
Curry is seconding it. Speakers to the item, please. Councillor Cartner?
Same comment as before with B, but also this is a different area. It's very close to the GO station, and we haven't had any discussion with, you know, do we want to make the GO station a hub? How do we want the area, Edward and East, to look? What kind of vision do we want to create for that with respect to transportation and business and residential? So so on both of those points, I don't believe we should be considering C at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will bring some new information. We've all received 2 separate emails in regards to this. Well, if no one did read it, there's one that was attached to our agenda tonight, and the other one did come in. So to me, though the problem that lies with the 2 emails is that they're conflicting in what they were saying. And to me, it doesn't spur confidence that there's a willingness to work with this council and with staff. So I'm gonna vote the same way I voted last week.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. You know, my preference would have been to deal with this particular application after the passage of Bill 139, which deals with transit corridors. It also brings in the OMB. We fought long and hard with all the various municipalities here in Ontario to bring forth this change so that we can have more say about this. You know, so I would prefer to deal with this after the Bill 139, and perhaps you can take that feedback back to the applicant if this doesn't pass. But, you know, the other thing is, in terms of council, I mean, when the Canadian Tire property came before us, the message was clear that we didn't want to deal with prospective buyers, that we wanted to deal with those that owned the property. If he was going to purchase and then come for the zoning. And so, you know, I just see us treating this property no different than we treated the Canadian Tire property. And I think that once Bill 139 passes and gives greater understanding with the OMB process, as well as how we're going to treat transit corridors, I think that'd be a more appropriate time to deal with this application.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers, please. Councillor Humphreys?
To you, Mr. Mayor, and I absolutely agree with, you know, what my peers have stated, but again, I'm not going to, difficult, you know, we've talked about this long and hard. The merits of the application will be presented to us, and that's when the public will have an opportunity to speak and state, and at that point, the application will go the way it will go. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Mr. Ramuno, just a couple of quick questions with respect to the GO station and transit corridor. That's not designated by us. My understanding is that would be designated by the province or the region. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct, but within our official plan, that eastern portion of Edward Street, not including a specific subject land, sort of the hole in the donut, is within our intensification area under the promenade plan.
And I was going to bring up the promenade next, so thank you for mentioning that, in that there was an extensive amount of work done down that corridor with respect to the promenade plan and the future intensification thoughts, plans for that area.
That's correct.
Thank you. Councilor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, does this 3 properties fall within the promenade zoning, or is it residential?
Through you,
Stable
Mr. Mayor, no, as I mentioned, these particular properties are within a stable neighborhood. They're not included within the promenade. They're the about half a dozen single detached lots on the east side of Edward that were not included in the promenade.
So thank you, Mr. Ramuno. So that means that they're not subject to the intensification within the transit corridor and the promenade. Is that correct?
Mr. Ramuno?
So you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. Yeah, I just, I'll reiterate a little bit what Councillor Thompson said. I mean, we have, as a province as a whole, done a lot of work with looking at giving us that authority, and for us to, while we're not looking at the merits, when you look at what's being presented in front of the application to us to receive, it doesn't fit in within what we're looking for within our zoning for that area, and so therefore, to accept to receive it, and then, like I said last week, to allow it with the possibility of us denying it and then it going to the OMB under a legislation that we don't like, and we're an unaccountable, unelected body will make a decision, is not acceptable. I don't think to us, I don't think to our residents, and I don't even think to this province, because that's why they're making the changes.
Councillor Thompson?
So,
sorry.
So, I mean, if the applicant wants to kind of make some adjustments to their application, resubmit it once Bill 139 is passed, which is hopefully within a month, 2 months, I'll be more than happy to receive that application at that time.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. Just further to your comments, through you to Mr. Ramuno, we talked about the promenade, but with regards to the official plan, does this application conform to the official plan?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, as indicated in the report, based on the proposed height, even though we haven't seen detailed plans at 3.5 stories, the height wouldn't conform with the maximum height under the stable neighborhood designation of maximum 3-story height.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. And I will support it because, quite frankly, all we're doing is directing staff to accept the application to go through the public planning process. Calling the vote, please, using your tablets. All those in favor, vote yay. Those opposed, please vote nay. That is defeated. We will move to, oh, I'm sorry, yes. Thanks, Mr. Clerk. Back to the main motion as amended, please. There's no further comments on the main motion as amended. Calling the vote. All in favor, using your tablets. Just A. I am. I'm just waiting for the... Okay, all in favor with your voting tablets, please. Those opposed? That carries. Thank you. That is it. We'll move to R1 for tonight, which is the final capital budget report. And if I may suggest to council that we move item R5 forward to this discussion as well. R5 was added, unfortunately was overlooked when the capital budget came to us. And that is the train whistling cessation. So that was unfortunately missed. And Councillor Thompson?
With respect to you know, R5, we heard tonight, you know, with regards to the community energy plan, R4, late information coming to us that perhaps it'd be better to move it to GC. Is it possible with the train whistle to do like we did in capital, just, you know, give it a yellow light, like pending further discussion? I know we have some other important issues to get back to at closed session, and so, you know, maybe we could just put it as a placeholder and then put it on a future agenda, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussion about that train whistle system.
That would certainly be very appropriate. So you move that as a yellow, as a pending?
Yeah.
Second on that, Councillor Kim, thank you. Any further comments or questions on that? All in favor? Opposed? So as item 5 is carried as a placeholder and moving it to the final capital budget, right, Mr. Clerk? So we'll now go back to the final capital budget.
As amended, I guess?
I'm sorry, Councillor Perry?
System on 5.
Yes. Hmm? Yes.
So I think it's just 1 and 2, and it's pending, be approved pending a further report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's not the motion we're voting on.
So we're just voting on one clause, too.
Yeah, this is not what we're voting on. They're just working on the wording.
A further report.
Awesome. Okay. Voting, please, on the R5. Just waiting for the tablets. All in favor, vote yea. All those opposed, vote nay. Okay. That is carried. We'll move back to item R1, which is the 2018 final capital budget report as amended, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Thompson moving that. Thank you very much. Second, please, on the capital budget. Councillor Maracus, thank you. Comments or questions on the capital budget? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed that the municipal energy plan is here. It's 90,000 in grant plus 90,000 coming.
We're not talking about the community energy plan right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm on page 4. It's item 42809 from our binders. So we've got 90,000 and 90,000. In the agenda item last time, number 8, I think we had 132,000 and change, and then 148,000 was the suggestion to put into the budget. So there's 3 different numbers. I don't know if Mr. Elliott, I do have the information if he needs it, but anyway, are we just putting this in as a placeholder because we haven't agreed to do this plan? So that's what we're doing, we're putting in as a placeholder. Then how did we get 180,000 and staff came up with the other 2 figures from last week, number 8?
I'm going to go to the CAO.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's right. In essence, you're allowing the amount to go through in the capital budget pending more information, and the 2 reports were already deferred tonight on the community energy plan, and so they'll come on the next GC agenda. And it's quite possible we'll have additional funding information by the time that comes to GC on the next cycle as well.
And I'm fine with that, but the figures we got last week were, it was going to cost $132,660, and the suggestion was that we put $148,495 in the budget, and now this figure is $180. So to me, there's a problem here. I don't want to dwell on it, but we can't have three different figures. And maybe Mr. Elliott wants to, wait, we'd be passing this tonight, right?
Mr. Elliott, can you help us, please?
The budget that's before you is the, I believe it's the 180 figure, was the original estimate of what the project was going to be before it got tendered. And so approving that capital project as the placeholder with the additional information to come back, we've got that now coming to next week's GC for further discussion. And so I think we're okay to approve the budget that's before you. And then when we award the tender, it will bring the actuals up, or bring the actuals to bear.
Councillor Gardner?
We're approving the capital budget tonight. In the capital budget, we're approving 90 plus 90 is 180.
Right.
The estimate from the consultant was just under 133,000. It was suggested that we put aside $148,495. So I would say we go with what the consultant's figure was, or if staff can explain why they put an extra $15,000 in the budget for that report from last week, then we'll go with the $148,000. But there has to be, if the 180 was an estimate, and now we have different figures, shouldn't we go with those?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're kind of crossing two different things. We're talking about budget and setting aside budget funding for capital projects. And then we've also got the tender award, which usually comes later. And at the time of the tender award, we either ask for more money or sometimes we even return money back to source. But either way, we make sure the budget is set. So here tonight, this particular item, we're approving the capital budget for the item. We're not approving the tender. We're not approving the award. We're just approving the budget for the item. That's what item R1 is doing. And it was the original estimate that was provided to us back a number of months ago. Yes, information has changed and updated to date, and we'll have that discussion next week.
Thank you. I understand that, and I'm not going to continue on with this, but I believe the budget should be updated to reflect what the consultant said it was going to cost. So I'm okay with the $180,000 in the case that if there's any extra money left in this project, that we use it to implement the plan.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Don. I understand Councillor Gardner's concern, but just as a reminder, it is the practice of Mr. Elliott to bring forward a report, be it semi-annually or annually, in terms of a capital project closures that indicates, here's the funding envelope that we had for this project, here's what it actually cost, and the difference, hopefully, is submitted back into the reserve accounts that it came from. And so, certainly Councillor Gardner's question is very valid. While it may say 180, we will get a report that says what the actual cost is, and then a return to source for whatever the difference is.
Any other speakers, please? I'm sorry, Councillor? Okay.
Well, I don't agree with that. Because we are putting it into our total budget figure, and it's a difference of, depending on how you look at it, $35,000. But going on from there, I guess to Mr. Downey on page 7, we're going to have two park designs. So I'm just curious because I did send some pictures out of some innovative park designs that I saw in Toronto. So these figures that you have here, 100,000, 200,000, they're based on the designs that we usually have, but would there also be room to look at perhaps some new park ideas that other municipalities are using? Because this park that I sent the pictures out, I think I sent them to everyone, there was actually a way for people in wheelchairs to use the structure to do exercises, and I thought it was, and also for adults, there was a whole series of adult exercises that you could do, and they were noted by the manufacturer. So with this money that's in the budget, could we still look at perhaps alternative designs that are being used by other municipalities?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, and thank you for sending those pictures. We actually had this discussion when we were looking at this capital budget item, and it's for 2 playground replacements, one at Hamilton Park and one at Copeland Park. Yes, we are always looking for some new and innovative play structures. So I have forwarded that information on to staff, and we will be looking at whatever elements we can incorporate in order to help increase the playability and the accessibility in all our playgrounds.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Quick question to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, the expensive reconstruction for Murray, could you say when that's going to happen? Because we do have residents who are interested in that are having problems.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think if approved, that was scheduled for later on in 2018.
So it'll be rebuilt in the fall?
Yeah, before the end of the fall.
Before the end of the fall, thank you. In page 8, under rates, through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, when we had that big flooding, I think it was June 18th, we had a car swimming on Industrial at Yonge. We had Yonge and Wellington was flooded. It was flooded west on Wellington. We were flooded on Orchard Heights. So is there anything in these, I know this isn't really your area of expertise, but is there anything in the money that we're putting in the budget that's going to address the flooding issues that we had so that we don't have to have them again?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, difficult to say. I don't have all the details in front of me of the individual projects, but when we are improving some of the older roads, we are making improvements to the underground sanitary storm system. So, we are trying to prevent any future flooding. But I mean, this past summer we did have some extreme events, and I think we were fortunate that within town only a couple pockets really experienced flooding. I mean, in a lot of our newer areas, I mean, the stormwater management systems really did do their job, and we didn't really see much in the way of flooding. But I mean, it's always something that we're looking at to ensure we make those improvements to avoid those issues down the road.
Thank you, and I think we need to put some money into this because I think it's going to be progressively a worse problem. Just have a couple more questions. The non-programmed park in 2C, could you just say through you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Downey, what does non-programmed mean?
Can you give us an item number, please?
Yeah, 73299. It's on page 9.
Thank you. Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, that's a park that's actually off of Hartwell, north side of Hartwell, across the street from 2 proposed school sites. And it's a piece of parkland that we have not identified a facility fit for. So we feel that we should be moving forward with the development of that, and so we will be going forward to the community, looking for some ideas with regards to a facility fit for that park and moving forward with its development. So non-program means we have no identified facility for that park at this time.
And it's through you, Mr. Mayor, if I would say $1,500,000 is a lot of money to spend on a neighborhood park that doesn't hold a tennis court or a soccer field. What would you say back to me?
I would say that we haven't determined that it's not going to hold a tennis court at this time, but because it may very well.
It says in the report, in the budget binder, that it's not.
It's not proposed at this time, but we haven't gone to the public to find out whether or not that's something that they would like to see happen. So I don't want to make a commitment at this particular time. We have addressed some of the tennis within the areas. You know, we put tennis courts in Mavernack Park recently. We base the cost of the park on the square footage of the acreage of the park and multiply that by a factor that is fairly typical of the development of a neighborhood park. And it is fairly close to the cost that we looked at for Mavernack.
Which was 6 acres.
Correct, and more than 1.5 million.
Thank you. My mistake. I thought the budget sheet said we couldn't put a park in there. Why do we have funding in our budget for a new library? Oh, I mean, it's not possible to build a new library for $665,000. That's on page 10, 72114. We have $665 in our budget for a new library.
Mr. Downey?
Just having a discussion of who's going to answer that question. So this item is identified in the 10-year capital as a project scheduled for this year. Since the 10-year forecast is approved by council, staff have presented this number to council for their consideration, and we are not looking at this point to propose an extension to the library, but we wanted to make sure that we identified all the projects that were identified in the 10-year capital for council consideration.
Councillor?
Perhaps I should know this, but through you to Mr. Downey or Mr. Elliott, are we putting away money every year for a new library?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't answer that. I haven't got the 10-year capital in front of me. The reason I know the answer to the question is because I asked the same one when we were looking at preparing the binder. And we need to make sure that we are identifying all the costs that are within that binder. I can't tell you whether or not there are additional costs in future years or not at this time, but certainly I can provide that information to council if you wish.
Well, we would be, thank you very much. We would be approving this tonight, and I mean, if we're putting money away every year for a new library, I'm sorry, I don't know, but we're not building a new library, and we could use that money for the garbage contract.
It's a different item. It's capital.
Okay. It's true. Well, we could save that money then. Anyway, it's a question then. Please, Mr. Elliott, are we putting money away every year for a new library?
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This item has come forward, as Director Downey says, it has been in the 10-year capital plan. It's in the draft approved capital report here tonight, and it's indicated as a conditional approval requiring additional information before any money is spent. And so there will be a further report coming back specifically on this library item, and we'll be sure to include whether there's annual funding or not. I don't believe that there is.
You have half a minute left, Councillor Gardner.
And, you know, Mr. Mayor, I find this budget process very fast. Perhaps the old budget process was too slow, but we're being asked to approve the budget tonight, putting in an item that's got a conditional on it. I don't really think that's the way to go. And the last thing, if you permit me, when we take money from a hydro reserve, like the $1 million for the cultural precinct, that's not a regular reserve fund. That's not a cash to capital reserve fund. So why do we include that in our capital budget? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Elliott.
Again, this is an item that requires a further report back. and so it will be coming back at that point.
Again, I would say that we shouldn't be approving the capital budget without knowing all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Peary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would, sitting on the library board, I would only clarify that although no new facility is contemplated for $650,000, we are always looking at ways to better serve the residents in all parts of town. So there have been some discussions around putting smaller receptacles where people can pick up and drop off books. There has been some discussion around renovating the library space to make sure that it's better utilized for the evolving needs of the libraries, So that's sort of the intent. But again, there is going to be a report coming to council.
Thank you, Councillor Peary. Any other comments? Councillor Gartner, you've already spoken twice, Councillor Gartner.
Need money for the library, but we shouldn't be calling it a new library.
Thank you. There's no other comments or questions. All in favor, please. Oh, tablets. I should know this by now. Vote in favor or vote against? Alrighty. Carries 8-1. Thank you very much. We'll go to R2, which is the appointment of the Deputy Treasurer. Someone would move that. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tom, seconding. Comments or questions on replacement Deputy Treasurer? All in favor? Tablets, please. Opposed? Councillor Gartner? Gotcha, thank you. That passes, thank you very much. Item R3, the Central York Fire Station. And the chief has been patiently waiting. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Abel, seconding it. Comments or questions, please? You don't have to. In that case, calling the vote. All in favor, please. Tablets? Vote in favor, vote against. That carries 9-0, unanimously carried. Mr. Chief, gentlemen, thank you very much. No. Councillor Thompson.
Mayor Daw, we still have a significant issue to return to in closed session. I'd like to make a motion that we deal with the bylaws now, minus the confirming bylaw, and then go into recess so that we can resume closed session.
Is there a second for that, please? Councillor Peary? All in favor. So the motion is to bring the bylaws forward, deal with the bylaws, recess, go into closed session, then come back and deal with motions. That's the motion on the table right now. I've got Councillor Gartner would like to speak to that.
I want to speak to a bylaw.
I'm sorry? Okay, we're not dealing with the bylaws yet. We're just changing the order so if anyone speaking to Councillor Thompson's motion? All in favor then? Opposed? That is carried. We'll bring the bylaws forward then. And I know that Councillor Tom did request that the first bylaw, which is the council composition, be pulled separately for, and did you wish to speak to that, Councillor Tom? Or just call for a recorded vote, a separate vote on the?
I just wanted it voted on separately. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gartner, do you wish to speak to this bylaw? Please.
It's bylaw number A. It's with respect to council composition, taking it from that was voted on 2 weeks ago, I think. Taking councillors from 8 to 6. I don't agree with it, but apart from not agreeing with it, there's no parameters around it. We haven't heard yet from the council, the governance committee. We haven't had their final report. We don't know what the parameters are around the 6 councillors, what they're suggesting. Actually, some members of the public asked me when there was going to be public input into this. I think we need to do that. I think we need some public input. And I know Councillor Perry suggested the referendum question, but if you consider that about a third of the voting population came out to vote, and of those, just over half voted for it, we're talking about 16 or 17% of the voting population in Aurora, and there were absolutely no parameters around that. The question was asked, do you want to take council down from 8 members to 6 members? And there was no discussion about, are they going to be paid the same, more? Is there going to be full-time? So I think it's premature to vote on this. I don't know if we're on through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk, I don't know if we're on a timing deadline with respect to deciding this, but I think,
Through you, Mayor Dodd, the bylaw needs to be passed before December 31st of this year to take effect for next year's election.
before December 31st. Well, I think we could hear from the public.
Councillor Thompson.
Just quickly, the Governance Committee's final report is part of the GC agenda that was circulated to all members of council last week and available to the public. And it doesn't call for any substantive changes to what we have now. It's just a slight increase, I think, is what the recommendation is. So that information is readily available.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be quick, Councillor Gartner is correct. I do take issue with stating that we didn't go out. I don't think we can have any more direct way of hearing from our residents than having a referendum. In my opinion, the residents spoke very clearly. It's not our position to second guess what they chose, and so that's why I voted. And I think I've been extremely consistent why this is the right move. So I look forward to voting in favor of this bylaw, which ratifies the decision that council has already made.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but then such as things at council. I said this before, and I'm saying it again. I think this is a wrong decision for council. Yes, the Governance Committee's report is now available for next week's GC, the next cycle of council. But obviously, this wasn't a recommendation from the Governance Committee. This was an initiative that was put on the agenda basically at the very last minute and of this term. That's not why I'm opposing it. I just think, it didn't give much time for any debate on this issue, further debate on this issue, or any further public input. I'm not going to rehash what we discussed when this came to council last and when it came to committee last, but I just believe that this is the wrong way to go, and I'm completely opposed to it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please? Calling the vote then. On your tablets, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we launched into this without moving and seconding, so I do need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Perry moving. Yeah, I don't think that's... You just gave the man a coronary. Councillor Thompson, you seconding it? Thank you. Using your tablets, please. All in favor? And those opposed? My finger's not hot enough. That carries 7-2. Does anybody wish any other bylaws pulled separately? Councillor Gartner?
Just wanted to know if will we have a chance to mention new business?
I'm sorry?
Will we have a chance to mention any
Yes.
community events?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Would anyone like any other bylaws pulled separately with the exception of the confirming bylaw? Then could I ask someone to move the rest of the bylaws? Councillor Perry, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Thompson? All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry. We doing the, no, we have to do it by hand because we haven't got the technology for that. All in favor, hands up. Opposed? We like to mix things up just to keep it interesting. Okay, so that carries the bylaws. And Councillor Thompson, you wish to move a recess? Councillor Maraca, second. That is to go into closed session. We will come back if anybody's interested in staying. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May I suggest we take our 10-minute break and then we resume closed session at 5 to 9?
Before you adjourn, are other staff allowed to go then, because you're going to come back to the business and everything?
Yeah, we don't need, as far as I know, we do not need staff. Who? Oh, in closed session, but not coming back.
When you come back, staff will be gone.
Council, we will report out. Council, please. We'll start up again, please. We will, I'll go to the clerk to, for reporting out. Mr. Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mayor Don. Through you, the motion in front of council is that closed session report PBS 17089 be received and that confidential direction to staff be approved.
That's moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor, well, we need a second first. Councillor Thompson. Comments or questions, please? So I've got Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. You know what, I'd just like the clerk to read out the full description of it. It is in the public agenda what the closed session report number PBS is referring to.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the full wording of the motion or of the item we were discussing tonight is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the town of Aurora or by the town or local board, section 232(2)C of the Municipal Act. Read closed session report. This is the report council will be receiving. PBS 17-089, which is a lease agreement at 89 Mosley Street.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Maracas, you had.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank staff, our CAO, and everyone involved. I think they've done a tremendous amount of work, and I think we all appreciate it. And also want to thank Councillor Perry for all the work that he's done on this specific item. So thank you very much.
Well said. And I think we all look forward to announcing a little more fully what this is all about. So calling the vote then, all in favor, please. We have our vote. No, we need to do a recorded vote, please, Mr. Clerk.
A recorded vote has been requested for the council closed session report out. Councillor Perry, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Perry votes yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Abel?
No.
Councillor Abel votes no. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Gartner? Yes. Councillor Gartner votes yes. Councillor Tom? Yes. Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Maracas? Yes. Councillor Maracas votes yes. And Councillor Humphreys? Yes. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That finishes the closed session item. I need a confirming bylaw for closed session, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maracas. All in favor, please. Opposed? That is carried. Motion to adjourn closed session. Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. We will now resume our regular council meeting. Motion to resume, please. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Tom. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We will move into, should be doing motions, correct, Mr. Clerk? We're doing motions. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mayor Daw. And I have three notices of motion. They're all asking for reports, and there's no financial or anything involved. So the first one, Mr. Mayor, is about affordable housing for official plan policies and zoning bylaws. And it's just a matter of formulating a policy as we move forward. When I attended the AMO...
Okay, just a sec, sir. I need a seconder.
Oh, you need a seconder? Thank you.
Please. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Gartner, thank you. Councillor Abel, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. So, as I was saying, when I attended the AMO in Ottawa, the municipalities were recommending that there is an affordable housing crisis. Affordable housing it often really refers to rental units and how to supply rental units or housing for people of all incomes and of all ages. So it's about our seniors aging in a community that's familiar with them, maybe in downsizing. It's about new families looking for a low-end rental, and also for kids, or if you have a college or something like that, that there's affordable housing. We have approved secondary suites, but the AMO conference workshops went into much more detail and options that you could go forward. So Mr. Mayor, I think it's important as we go forward with intensification that we adopt and become aware of prioritizing rental units. As I said, it is recognized as a shortage, especially in Aurora. We have a lot of our younger people leaving Aurora and heading down to rental units in the city. And so it's part of our economic development, a sustainable outlook, as well as accommodating people of all incomes.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although I am in favor of affordable housing, I think this might be a duplication of work that's already taking place within the municipality as well as at the regional level. So if I could get clarity from Mr. Amuno about whether or not A, affordable housing is already outlined within our official plan and zoning, and B, what's the region up to these days with regards to affordable housing?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do include general affordable housing policies within our official plan, and they've been there for a number of years. As you know, York Region has a housing authority, and they are taking the lead with respect to. They've been working on a housing strategy for some time now, and they are looking at partnerships with the local municipalities. And in fact, we have the general manager of housing for York Region and the chief planner appearing before council November 28th to present to Aurora Council the work that they've undertaken, and they're in the middle of their housing strategy. They're looking at investigating potential approaches to new housing and developing a housing incentives and initiatives program. So it's their York Region housing strategy, and we at a staff level have been meeting with working with the region over the past, I guess it's about a year, maybe even longer.
Councillor.
I'm never in favor of duplication of work or asking staff to do something that they're already doing, so I'll be voting against this.
Councillor Rackus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we're all concerned with when it comes to affordable housing. I think we would all like to see more affordable housing within our municipality, but I don't see it as duplication. I actually see it as but I agree with you, Councillor Perry. I see it as a motion that's premature, just because of the fact that when Bill 7 reached Royal Assent, and that included inclusionary zoning, while they've laid out that legislation, they haven't provided the regulations yet, and that hasn't been done by the province. It hasn't been done by the region, and so therefore to ask our staff, Mr. Ramuno, to go back and develop guidelines when the regulations haven't even been set up for Mr. Ramuno to make those guidelines with, well then, how can Mr. Ramuno make those guidelines? And so therefore, that's why I think it's a case of putting the cart before the horse. I think if we're going to look at doing this within our official plan and adding it to our official plan, well, we've already talked about that our official plan work isn't going to be done until, or at least start until 2019, because the region isn't going to be, I think it's 2020 that they're looking at.
2020.
Yeah, so how can we set up the policies and the guidelines when the regulations aren't done within the inclusionary zoning from the province? The region isn't doing their update until 2020, so how can we ask our staff to develop those guidelines when they don't have those regulations to be able to make those guidelines up? So I'll be voting against this.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I've spoken about this a lot, and I would appreciate staff keeping us in the loop. I mean, we do have the regional report that we can read if we want, and it often talks about affordable housing and different initiatives, but this is of interest apparently to more than just myself. So maybe we could have an update on what is happening with the region and the province, and suggestions as we go along as how we might be able to take advantage of that. But for us as a municipality, we've had many opportunities, and that's through bonusing. We're allowed to grant developers an extra floor, and we have one application pending, a large application pending. from public planning. That's where we as a municipality can at least start to make a difference by asking developers what is allowed in the Planning Act.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Dell. Like similar comments, I certainly, would like to see more affordable housing within Aurora and would like to see what we can do to bring about more of that type of housing in Aurora. But at the same time, and when I first read the notice of motion, I did also pick up on the inclusionary zoning, and to the best of my knowledge at that time, I knew that it wasn't in force yet. And so, I share some of that concern that, perhaps this would be best just to hold off a little bit, and hopefully those regulations will come out soon, and then it makes more sense to move forward with it. But I also look at it from another perspective, is that, we're nearing the end of this term of council. I think, off the top of my head, I think we only have 16 council meetings left in less than a year before it's done. And, I was speaking with our CAO. We haven't had our pending list on our agenda since May of 2016. And when I look at that pending list, I see a lot of actions, from my perspective, that are still not finished yet. And also, you look at our key initiatives that were in our orientation binder back when we started this term, and still, there's some stuff that still needs to be done. So, I want to make sure that those things that we've already approved, that those things that we've already asked staff to do, get done before the end of this term. And so, I know that going forward, there will be a lot of ideas and notice of motions put forth. And so, I hope we keep in mind all the other work that's still outstanding that needs to get done. And, if anything new comes forward, that unless there's some sort of urgency, that it gets put in the queue.
Councillor Thompson. Other speakers, please. Mr. Rumuno, just perhaps you could reiterate, so Rick Farrell, who's the General Manager of Housing New York, and then Val, who's the Director of Planning at the region, will be coming. I'm pretty sure that, Rick with Housing New York, I have a presumption that he will probably talk about affordable housing. Do you have any sense of what their presentation will entail?
Certainly to you, Mr. Mayor. And they have been making their rounds with all the other municipalities, and I was hoping to get them here a little earlier, but just trying to coordinate the presentation. So they will have a presentation for council on the work that the region has undertaking and the work that they are going to continue on moving forward with respect to trying to finalize their housing strategy and coming up with financial guidelines and a framework for more affordable housing options, including the potential for the inclusionary zoning, and also looking at partnerships with not only the development industry but local partnerships with the 9 regional municipalities. So it's still in the early stages. I mean, their staff have been meeting with local staff and trying to do a lot of background research work, and they are trying to formalize a strategy to provide those options to for the local municipalities and communities to have the ability to provide additional affordable housing options within the region. But again, the challenge is not having those financial tools, and so they are looking at coming up with a financial framework, and it'll involve a lot of different elements.
Thank you, Mr. Rumuno. And just based on that, and if you look at the new growth plan from the province, the 2017 growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, they specifically address housing. It starts off upper and single tier municipalities in consultation with lower tier municipalities, the province and other appropriate stakeholders will each develop a housing strategy. So it's more of a top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up. And certainly affordable housing is an element of that. So it might make sense at the very least to wait until we hear what the region comes and tells us in a couple of weeks and see how we can meld in with that, because as Councillor Thompson has mentioned and a couple of others, staff still have a fairly extensive list that they're working on. I think we're all interested in affordable housing, but at the same time we want to be as efficient as possible. So rather than work at cross purposes perhaps, to work more closely with the region in terms of how to develop that affordable housing protocol. I will go back. I'm going to go to Councillor Kim as the first, and then back to Councillors Gardner and Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I applaud Councillor Abel for his motion. I know he's deeply passionate about affordable housing, and I was going to say the same thing that the mayor just spoke, which is it is a top-down process, and it's usually the province, sometimes at the federal level, who take the lead. I recall my first annual conference 2 years ago, and there was a workshop on affordable housing, and the consultant who was speaking indeed stated that it's really a challenge for any Tier 1, never mind a Tier 2 municipality to initiate a strategy and try to get everyone on board. The focus was on cooperation and partnership, but it was clearly a top-down process or roadmap that was drawn out to us. And in looking at the region, York Housing, they've certainly they have statistics in terms of how many affordable housing units that they've implemented over the years, and I would certainly, if anything, as others have mentioned about an update, I'd like to know not just about what the region is doing with respect to affordable housing, but what can we do? Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, if they do plan on coming here to present at a future date, perhaps a question that we can ask them is, how can Aurora participate in York Housing's strategy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to thank Councillor Abel I know his concern over the years has been affordable housing for younger people, and we need youth, young adults, and beyond in our community. It just can't be for middle class and older people, and I have two of those younger people in my family, and they could never afford to have a house in Aurora or even perhaps a condo. So it needs to be looked at, and my interest is with seniors. That needs to be looked at. Perhaps, Mr. Runa, you could, in preparation for the region coming, just tell us through an email or a memo what is in our official plan. I know in our official plan, I think it's 35%, 25% of housing that has to be built is affordable housing. But I don't know how it's defined. We can have some boxes that are affordable housing, but I'm not sure how it's defined with respect to median income, perhaps. And the same thing with zoning. I don't remember anything specific in our zoning bylaw that speaks to affordable housing, and could we even put something in our zoning bylaw or the inclusionary zoning? And with respect to number 2, it is, from what I've heard, I'm not an expert on this, it seems to me to be premature. But I think that it's very important that Councillor Abel has raised the bar for us as a council, because we've been talking about this. One of the very few things Councillor Buck and I have agreed on since the year 2004. Yeah, probably. There may have been others, but that certainly was the constant one. I mean, we're a rich community, but we're not all rich. And we need to be a complete community in that we try and take care of everybody and not just pay it lip service. So thanks, Councillor Abel. I won't be voting for the motion, but I do thank you for bringing it to us.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And I appreciate some of the comments, and I thank Mr. Ramuno and Mr. Nadarosny for helping me shape this, as well as the clerk. I wanted to be sort of, I just wanted for the idea was for a report back, for some guidelines, what's available, the 3 tiers, so that we could have an understanding as we move forward. We have an economic development plan. We have a strategic plan, and I thought with all that's going on, it's not the region, and I don't want to fault the region, but I just look at the region's record. If you look at, say, our transit, you know, they're doing great things in transit. They, you know, we invested $40 million for the subway, but, you know, here in Aurora, we're sort of a bit forgotten. So it's a matter of our unique situations and seeing how they fit in with the region. And if we don't have something before them, perhaps their attention will be in Markham, Vaughan, and Richmond Hill, which it often is. You know, the last region built affordable housing was Hadley Grange, and I think that's 15 years, 20 years old, with a 10-year wait. So, you know, that's sort of the relationship we have with the region. If we have something and we understand something, I'm not asking for a repetition. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm just, it's better to be a proactive council on top of it so that we learn, that we're aware. And as my notice of motion says, you know, planning and thinking before funding programs become available is, you know, it's a sound strategic investment so that you're shovel ready, so to speak, or we have something. We have condos applications coming in all the time. We have absolutely no rental units in them. And I didn't want to tax our staff, spend a lot of time on it, but there are federal strategies going forward, and there are provincial strategies, and they're encouraging municipalities to get involved in the consultation with their upper tier in the region. So it was not meant to be heavily resourced on our staff, and it based on the discussion, I think we're all interested in receiving a report. From there, we can give direction. So that's merely what I was putting forward.
I will go to Councillor Humphreys for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I guess, you know, just listening to all the comments, and you know, it looks like it's more of a proactive approach. I think item number 1, if I'm not reading this, if I'm reading it correctly, will not be that much of a staff effort. And then item number 2 is the report referred to in corporate guidelines funding policies from all 3 upper tier governments, being the region, provincial, and federal. And if this information is available, is, you know, I don't think it's that off target. Or, I'm sorry, I may have missed something about, is someone coming here to talk to us and then we'll be working on this?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Oh, okay. So just timing's a little off. So can we bring this back then? Maybe that's what we do, is just hold off for that presentation and then do this in 2 weeks? Amendment? Yeah. Go ahead.
It would just, if you wish, you could defer it for 2 weeks.
Maybe defer for 2 weeks, it may fit.
See what the region has to say.
Did you want a response?
Well, if that's what Councillor...
Mr. Mayor, I mean, Mr. Mayor, I think if Mr. Ramuno understands what the council is saying, there's no, you know, you can take the comments and wait. I mean, he wasn't going to start this tomorrow, and this just says to get us abreast. So it may take 2, 3 weeks before, 5 weeks before the region comes, but he's compiling that while he's getting what the province is bringing forward. And I've talked to our MPP, Chris Ballard, and he's got lots of ideas and for our municipality, and we should incorporate as much as possible as we move forward, because as we intensify, this is where we sort of will bring in. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Humphreys.
Okay. Just back to that, I don't know if maybe we just bring this back after the presentation and see if this is the right direction for staff.
You would have to put a motion to defer.
Just if that's okay, I don't want to throw Councillor Abels off what he was hoping to get accomplished, but I'm thinking wait for 2 weeks.
Well, that's the only way to do it.
Okay. And do I have a seconder for that? I don't know.
Well, you'd have to put a motion on the floor,
Yeah,
Councillor.
2 weeks after the that's what I'm trying. Like whenever this presentation is done, staff has their information, then we could bring this back.
Okay, so is that a motion to defer for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Or until after the
after
regional
the-
presentation? So a seconder for that. Councillor Gartner, are you seconding? The deferral.
Right. Yeah. It's
4,
longer.
maybe? December 12th? December. That would be 4 weeks.
Sure.
So that would be the motion to defer. Comments on the motion to defer, please. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of motion to defer? Oppose? The motion is deferred until December the 12th. I'm sorry, Councillor Perry? We should be using this, correct? Motion to defer, so we're using, thank you, Councillor Perry. We'll use the, Ishida? Working on it? Got it. If you'd all vote, please. 8 of 9. Councillor Maracas. Oh, Councillor Maracas is in. 9 of 9. It's carried. Thank you. Councillor April.
A very successful powwow last year was an initiative that we brought forward. This is a report, not ask.
I need a seconder.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gardner, back to you, sir.
This is not asking for money. It's only asking staff to report back on the cost. I know there's a number of grant funding available. I've talked to our MPs, and they are in support of this. And I've also spoken to some sponsor opportunities as well. So it would be a report, basically how it was done, what the budget was, and would to support based on funding sponsorship. So again, that's all I'm asking for.
Thank you. Speakers to the motion, please. Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. You know, I know that I'm fine with this moving forward to budget. I made this comment when we talked about the Christmas market, and I'll save most of my comments for the budget process, but I just think we have to be careful. We're not overloading our special events staff with too many special events from council, but we can discuss that when we discuss all of the special events in the budget process. So I'm happy to see this come forward through that process. I just want to make that comment again. You know, we're putting an awful lot of stress on the current complement of staff, and I just want to make sure that we are aware of that.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supportive of the motion. I just, and to Councillor Tom's point, to discuss during budget, I'd like to see these initiatives be folded into existing special event days. Like, this is a fantastic event, maybe during Multicultural Festival, so that it can be layered in and staff is already there. Maybe too much, I don't know. I'm not familiar, but I think that's something we should need to think about when we're doing all these new events, so that it doesn't have to always be a separate day. It can be an incorporated event, and that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you. Mr. Downey's not here, but my question is whether, I know this was an event we held in the past. Is it something he was not planning on running again? I wasn't made aware that he wouldn't be. And typically when we start an event.
It was a one-off.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was a one-off event, and it was subsidized by the Canada 150 funding. So we have no budget, and there is some concern about, at the broader level, not about this in particular, but about resources for special events from both Mr. Downey's department and our communications section.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the financial resources, Councillor Abel seems to have that one covered. With respect to special events staff, that's another matter. I'm going to vote for this, but I think we need to have a lot more information come back as to who's running this, and we just need some more information. But I think it's a good idea, and I think it's It's an important idea as well.
Councillor Kim.
Yeah, I think educating and celebrating with the public on with the powwow is significant. Like Councillor Humphreys, I think this would roll better if it rolled in with an existing program. I'm not sure with all due respect to the participants, I'm not sure whether as a standalone event it's going to have as much traction, and at least for the first little while, and I think that's pretty well how staff does it, just similar to Multicultural Festival and other festivals before it, is to roll it in with other events to see whether there is the traction, and then launch it off as a standalone down the road. And it seemed to have worked in the current activities, and I'd be kind of all for following that same process. But it'd be great to have the powwow on an annual basis, certainly.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers, please? Seeing none, calling the vote. All in favor, press your tablets, please. Those against? That is carries. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was something I saw on social media, pedestrian calming, and I need a second to.
How long have you been doing this?
I should know, especially I'm tired.
Is there a second? Councillor Humphreys, thank you.
Thank you. Again, this is no cost at this time. It's just a report back. But I should have sent a picture, but when the report comes back, it'll show you the pictures. It's really cool. Instead of the crossing stripes, they're painted to look like they're little bumps. And it would give character, and it would be effective in calming drivers in certain. So it's basically just to check it out. I saw it was done in Iceland. And we do have speed bumps, and we've tried other ways of employing traffic calming. So maybe around the farmers market or a couple of spots that it would add a bit of character and would be effective in safety.
Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I was made aware of this as well on social media about 2 months ago. A resident pointed it out to me, and they've tested it out in Iceland, 2 different cities in India, as well as give me 1 second here, sorry, and as well as in China. The only thing is that they've just started testing it, and so while I don't mind maybe getting a report back on some of the thoughts of what staff think, I don't think there's enough information at this point for us to warrant actually moving forward with implementing anything like this, because there's no data that shows that this actually slows down drivers. It looks cool. It really does, and it looks interesting, and I think it's something that we can look at and maybe in a year's time see what the data is coming out of the cities that have implemented it, and does it actually slow down the traffic? Maybe we can go from there, but yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a report and just hearing what staff what they can dig up and what they can find out about this.
Councillor Gartner, Councillor Tom.
My comment was similar. I want to see the data that says it works before we would go forward with this. So if staff can find that data, that'd be great.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I guess I'm a bit more skeptical. I looked at these as well, and while I think they are definitely a cool kind of optical illusion, before I start committing, I know this is just asking for costs for setting up 5 installations, and it's asking staff to do some degree of work with kind of the intention of kind of moving towards the goal of testing them out. And I haven't seen really anything that suggests that they actually make the roads safer or slower, cars drive slower. In fact, I could see potential issues with cars being confused, drivers being confused with respect to what they're seeing in front of them. So I'd be fine to get an informational report based on, you know, what the implementation has been like in other cities across the world. But like I said, I'm a bit more skeptical, so I don't think I'm willing to ask staff to start going off and getting estimated costs for installations, and that we rush this report to make sure that we get it in for budget in 2018. So like I said, if it's just getting a report back from staff, I'd be in favor of it. If it's currently constructed as it is and before us, then I'll be voting against it.
I've got Councillors Peary, Thompson, and we're going to go to the CAO for a comment. Councillor Peary.
All right, so since I've got the floor, I think everybody around the table's looking at this optical illusion saying, you know, I agree it looks cool. We're all asking the questions, does it work? I think more importantly than the question, does it work, is it needed anywhere in town? Do we have any crosswalks that are very unsafe? Do we have any crosswalks where we're having an issue with people not stopping? If we're having those types of issues, then by all means, let's investigate it. But I'm not sure that there are any crosswalks in town that are unsafe. So I just, yeah, it looks cool, but I think we need a bigger justification than that to move forward with even just this amount of work.
Councillor Thompson, please.
Similar to the comments before, you know, I share that same sort of thought with Councillor Peary, in that, you know, we have policies with regards to speed bumps and so forth, and how we're dealing with it. And so this is a little bit, you know, outside of the box, so to speak. But at the same time, when I first saw the picture, while I thought it was cool, for whatever reason, I also thought, well, it could also be a distraction for drivers, and maybe it creates an issue as well. And so I don't know, you know, looking at those communities and cities that have it, I don't know if it does the opposite sometimes and creates some liability or not. And so if staff were to go forward, I'd like to understand that liability, because I remember years ago some issues with roadside signs and so forth, distracting drivers and putting the municipalities at risk. And so, you know, I wonder if that's the same possibility. I'm fine with the report, but you know, again, to my comment with regards that there's a lot on the pending list and so forth, and so, you know, I'm not supportive of the second clause. I think this just goes in the queue, and let's get those things that we've already approved done first, and if there's still time left in this term, then so be it.
Councillor Thompson, before I go back to Councillor Abel, I'm going to ask Mr. Nader-Rozzi to comment.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just for Council's consideration, we were having a discussion about this earlier this week, and within the capital budget, there are two items, pedestrian crossings and traffic calming. And so just to take some pressure off in terms of absolutely having this all worked out for budget, we're prepared to consider this with council so directs, we're prepared to consider this kind of a solution within that budget and come back to council with a report on that. It would just take the pressure off of the budget sessions right now. We feel funding's there.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Mr. Nader-Rozzi for the comment. It really is just for consideration. I can see the pressure with the time on the budget because we're moving in, and it's already covered. It really is painting is what it is. So school zones, you know, where there's a stop sign, people slowing down, our children, students being aware of caution and the implementation. And as I said, it would be important to see what results are already where it's been implemented. And I think it's also worth an opinion from police and fire to see what they think of it. We may not be thinking of it. There's a lot of distractions when we're driving, you know, apart from our cell phones and radios and stuff. There's so many signs and stuff going on, you know, and I appreciate some of the comments that adding more distraction is not a good thing, especially if you're implementing it in places. But I think it's worth having a look at. And it seems like a real off-the-top, inexpensive way to bring awareness and safety in certain zones. But I also appreciate that we should look into it for risk, get comments, and see its success rate where it is being implemented. So, and that would be borne out. And it doesn't have to be as quick as I suggested. So Mr. Mayor, it might be that we just dissolve number, just take
Sorry?
number, we just take the second clause off,
Mr. Clerk?
based on the comments from our CAO.
The mover, is the seconder okay with removing the second clause?
Okay.
All right, so then we're just dealing with clause 1. I'm going to go to Councillor Kim.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nadarasny. Sir, what did you say that you were looking at this motion and this would help alleviate some of the budget? I didn't hear that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just offering to council, so rather than feeling like you had to deal with this at budget time and we had to have all the information ready, we're prepared to handle it within the capital budget. There's pedestrian crossing work and other funds already set aside, so we're going to be doing some of this work anyway, and this would just be one of the ways of doing that work, so we're prepared to bring a report back before we do any of that work to consider this idea. And it would just, again, all it does is just take the pressure off of deciding this as part of the budget process. This would come forward once we have the information that council is looking for.
Okay, so essentially you have the time and resources to look into this, so you're okay with, staff is okay with this? Okay. Okay. Oh, great. I mean, it is not the usual way of traffic calming, but it seemed to be effective in a couple of places. And my thoughts were that because it's not a rampant idea that's being used throughout the globe, it shouldn't take too long to do the investigation. So I'm okay with voting for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gartner?
Thank you. And, you know, it mentions pedestrian crossings. To me, I'm not sure that I haven't heard of any trouble with pedestrian crossings, but I certainly have heard about a lot of trouble with, for example, Henderson and the speed that cars travel on Henderson. So I through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. CEO, the projects that you were talking about, were they pedestrian crossings or were they more traffic calming for? I don't remember anything specific in the budget about pedestrian crossings. Oh, there's one on Henderson. Maybe there's one on Henderson.
Through Mr. Mayor, if you look on item R1,
Thank you.
page 10, there's two areas where council has agreed to move forward with on the capital budget: pedestrian crossings, as per the 2014 DC study, and traffic calming. So there's work that's going to go on in the next year that council's already endorsed through the capital plan, and we're prepared to consider this as one of the ways to do some of that work. So we haven't looked at with any specifics about where or any of that. I'm just, again, I offered only as in the spirit of not having this to be all locked down as part of the budget process. We're prepared to, if this is an idea that council wants to pursue, we can do it within the budget you've already assigned to these areas.
Thank you. That was a good suggestion. But I just want to reiterate, we've been talking about doing something about Henderson for a long time, so maybe this would fit in there, at least with a pedestrian crossing, because that's what the residents want. They want to be able to cross Henderson safely.
Any further speakers, please? And remember, we're just voting on clause 1 that's on the screen. Using your tablets, please. That passes. Alrighty, we will go to new business, please. If I may start with, I believe it's my turn to start with you, Councillor Marcus. Okay, Councillor Gartner, under new business.
Thank you. I raised it last week as well. It was about the concrete that was running into the stream from construction on Kennedy Street West. And I just need the CAO to hear this.
Council, please.
Sorry, I raised it last week about about a resident telling me about construction, about concrete from construction, I guess it'd be concrete debris or concrete dust, actually going into the stream. He actually saw it, and the comment from staff was that people can call in. But is there anything more that we can do when construction is going on? This was just a residential, 2 townhouses. I mean, is there anything that we can do to limit that kind of damage to the streams? We're really trying to work hard to protect the streams that flow into the Oak Ridges Moraine. So I just want to raise it again through you and Mr. Muno. It's just not good enough to tell a resident that they could call on a Monday and report it if they see something on a Wednesday. There has to be a better plan of how we can mitigate it, perhaps in advance. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I was hoping that our CAO could give us an update on the demolition of the old library and senior center. Where does it stand?
Mr. Nate Rasney.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have all the details, but I know that the tender closed. The winning tender was below the budget, and we anticipate moving forward. I'd have to get more details to you later.
Do we expect a timeline with regards to when the buildings will be down?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, I don't know if there was any alteration in that winning bid to the timeline suggested, but I believe it was to start in December and be torn down.
Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we have come out of closed session and instructed staff to go ahead with a lease at 89 Mosley. And I think we should declare the facility surplus and see if there's an expression of interest. In lieu of that not being the case, I think an explanation to our to the residents should be forthcoming, a communication as to why that's not taking place.
I'll leave that in the hands of the CAO to report out later. Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Tom? Yes. New business.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I was advised by a resident, they sent me a link to an article from YorkRegion.com from the Newmarket era, and it's from October 3rd, 2017. And the title of the article was, "Will Your Road Project Be Bumped as York Region Faces a $1.5 billion shortfall?" The article goes on to say that the York Region is now saying it's $1.5 billion short on its forecasted 10-year capital roads budget and plans to delay 56 projects beyond 2031. There's 2 projects that are included in the article that are in Aurora. One of them is widening Wellington Street to 4 lanes from Yonge Street to the train station, and the other is the interchange at the 404 and St. John's Side Road. So there was a report that was given, or that was circulated via email from Anka Mihail, the Manager of Engineering and Capital Delivery, on the projects in Aurora, and I just like that be placed on the next cycle of council for a discussion. And I just wanted to give you also a heads up, because there might be some questions coming to our regional representative. But that concludes my new business. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kim?
I'm good.
Councillor Peary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to advise council that next week, as on behalf of my FCM duties, we'll be in Ottawa for FCM Advocacy Days, where we'll be talking to MPs, ministers, leaders from different parties, and I'm certain that affordable housing is going to be on the agenda of things that we talk about and advocate for on behalf of all municipalities across Canada. Thank you.
Any public service announcements? Councillor Peary? Councillor Kim? Councillor Tom?
I'd just like to congratulate everyone involved with respect to the installation of the lav at the Cenotaph in Aurora. I was unable to attend Remembrance Day ceremonies this weekend. I was out of town, but I've been told by members of council and other members of the public that it was a fantastic day of remembrance, and there was a great turnout despite the cold. And again, just wanted to thank everyone who spent time and effort in getting the lav placed at our cenotaph. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Abel?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to say that we had a fantastic Remembrance Day dinner November 4th, and it was very well attended by many of us here at the council table. Also, the Remembrance Day parade was a very, I don't know, it was just a very special parade. It was well attended. It was cold, but I thought the march was looking really sharp, led by Ken White and Len Wise, and all the cadets and the air cadets and and Queen's York Rangers, etc. I did want to update council and on the Making Peace. This is the last week for the exhibition. It has been an outstanding success. This week, the curator, as in the contract, came back from Atlanta, because that's where it's going next, and is giving tours all week. We have 14 schools all through the week. They're basically in the morning and early afternoon. We had 3 grades from Northern Lights in Aurora come yesterday. Very enthusiastic, and today we had 120 students, 3 different tours, and they were from Richmond Hill, Newmarket, and Woodbridge. So not only are we getting our own, but the students are coming from everywhere. In all, we'll have just under 1,000 students taking a tour over the whole exhibition. And it's, it's one of those metrics that when you think of all the other things that we've done, this is a great success, because it's hard to imagine that many students being involved in anything that we've done before. But that's the power of outside art, public art, and the draw and the impact it has. So the teachers are absolutely thrilled. A couple of them have said they're going to write our town, Mr. Mayor, to you and thank Aurora for putting this forward in our town park. So I wanted to thank everyone for the support and give you an update, and thank the sponsors. And Mr. Mayor, I think that is it.
Alrighty, thank you.
Oh, I did want to mention the seniors had their bazaar, Christmas bazaar, and it was a very well attended event, and it's their #1 fundraiser, and they did a 50-50 draw, but I understand they had the license for that this year in place, which was very good, so we're not gambling away as we thought. Okay.
We want to hear. Councillor Thompson.
I just want to echo the comments with regards to the Remembrance Day ceremonies. I agree, it was certainly a special day, and maybe we're a little spoiled with the fly pass, but if we can get that arranged for every year, that would be fantastic.
Might be a bit of a challenge. Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. Remembrance Day is always special, and this year I miss my friend Albert Arcand, who passed away at the wonderful old age of, 95 or 96, who was always a fixture at that ceremony. I'd also like to speak to the opposite point of view to the LAV. I do know people who didn't attend because they are upset that the LAV is in a peace park. So just perhaps to balance that a bit. And on, Saturday we have our budget. So any of the public who wants to join us in the council chamber. And on Sunday, something very special, the community has been participating in the Milestone mural out of the cultural center, and we got a grant to do that. So we're going to unveil it on Sunday. So it's from 1 to 4 this Sunday. So for those of us who have nothing else to do.
Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday, I had the honor of being in attendance and being invited to the home of Lauren Hemborough, and while she signed her letter of intent. And just to give you a little bit of background, Lauren is in her final year at Aurora High, and she's been actively recruited by many U.S. Division I university swim coaches, ranging from University of Tampa, Colorado State University, San Jose State University, and after careful consideration, she has accepted a generous offer at Mexico State University, and she'll be attending there next year. Sorry, New Mexico. Thank you. I apologize. And she'll be there as part of their swim team. And thank you, Councilor Perry. You know, and last Wednesday was the Hall of Fame dinner, which I'm sure you'll mention, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted it was quite fitting being there and possibly seeing a future Hall of Famer from Aurora. And so it's quite exciting. And I think it's another example of being proud of a Aurora resident that is at a high level and high caliber of athletics and going to be representing Aurora very well on the national stage. So.
Thank you. And I do have the Sport Hall of Fame. So the fifth induction dinner was last week, and we inducted 4, at this time all in the athlete category. But one of the things that they're working on is future Hall of Famers. So that's a very nice tie-in, absolutely. We have tomorrow night, is very exciting, the Youth Innovation Fair over at the AFLC. And I get to judge. I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to judging because I suspect it's going to be a rather challenging evening, but I'm really looking forward to see what they come up with. And I've already heard that there's a bug farm that generates energy. So I'm quite looking forward to that, see what that is all about. The tickets for toys, pardon me, Toys for Tickets. Toys for Tickets is coming back from the 15th, so tomorrow through December the 15th. If you get a parking ticket, you can you bring in the ticket and you bring in a toy that is at the value or above of the ticket, and then the ticket's waived and someone in Aurora gets a new toy. So I think that's always a great opportunity, and I don't recommend people get tickets, but if you get a ticket, that's one way to deal with it. Or you're just welcome to bring in a toy. We would appreciate that.
Is there a time frame
this
for
Thursday
that? Sorry, is there a time frame for that?
Like,
does that last a specific time?
It's November the 15th to Monday, December the 11th.
Okay, thank you.
So it starts tomorrow through for about 4 weeks now. And then on Thursday night is the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. That has come back after a couple of years of hiatus, so that will be a lot of fun and an opportunity to recognize some of our local businesses. And of course, last but not least, our Santa Under the Stars. Go Santa, go. That is it. Thank you very much, Council. May I please...
I would like to congratulate the United Church. It was Holocaust Remembrance Week last week, and they had a speaker on Wednesday evening, I believe. No, Thursday evening was a miserable night. And they had a speaker, actually, Mr. Weir and I attended. They had a speaker who was 10 years old when she was taken into the concentration camp. And it was very interesting and heartwarming. And thanks to the United Church, apparently they've done this every year for the last 10 years.
Okay, thank you. May I please have a motion to adjourn? Confirming bylaw first. That would be a good plan. Councillor Tom, Councillor Perry, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now a motion to adjourn. Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff.